Okay, so we're doing this session because you've learned a lot of information this weekend, and obviously we can't all do everything. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking they have to learn everything or they have to do everything. So even if you are really technical and you think, yeah, I could do all of that, you shouldn't do all of it. The people who succeed in this industry are people who know when to outsource. So you don't want to be spending all of your time, creating graphics. You don't want to be spending all of your time, building squeeze pages, building websites. Your most productive time is going to be doing things like market research, designing your new engine. Remember we talked about the engine? Yeah? Designing those. That's going to be your most productive time. So what I like to do in my business is outsource the elements which take up the most time, and also outsource the elements which I just really know that other people can do a better job than me. Rob talked about that yesterday with graphics. I outsource all my graphics simply because there's no way I could create good-looking graphics. Maybe if I spent 6 months, I could learn how to use software packages, and eventually maybe I could create good graphics. But it's better uses of my time. I do the videos myself just because I find that very easy to do, obviously. Now with outsourcers, the kind of thing, you're going to hear conflicting things all the way along the panel. Originally, I went to a seminar, and there was somebody there talking about people in the Philippines. Who's heard of that before? Yeah? You can pay them 200 quid a month, and you'll have someone working 30 hours or 40 hours a week, yeah? And I kind of thought, yeah, that sounds really good. So what I did was, I went on to bestjobs.ph and I hired somebody. It was quite hard to find somebody, but eventually I did find somebody, and they seemed to have all the qualifications, they seemed to know what they were doing, and they did a test job for me. They said, okay, what you need to do is you need to set up a test job and get them to do the test job, and if they do a good job, then they know what they're talking about. And went through this whole process, eventually found somebody. And they started doing work for me, but what I was actually finding was that they were taking an awfully long time to complete the tasks. And I was having to make training video after training video after training video, showing them how to do really basic things. And then they would do it wrong, and then I would have to tell them, no, you've done it wrong, you should do it this way. When they've done this 3 or 4 times in the past and got it wrong 3 or 4 times, and it all became a bit of a nightmare. So I changed to another person, went to about 4 people. And then somebody told me that a lot of people in the Philippines tend to work for more than one person. So they will work for someone in the UK or America, supposedly full-time, but actually they've got 3 or 4 people. In fact, the first guy I hired, after about 5 weeks, I actually found out he didn't own a computer, and he could only use his brother's computer for a couple of hours a day. Yeah? So, other people might have really good experiences with the Philippines and hiring, I'm just talking about full-time virtual assistants here. I had massive failure doing that. But what I have had massive success with is finding people, for instance, on the Warrior Forum, outsourcers, people on Fiverr.com, these types of sites. So for instance, I'll go to the Warrior Forum, search for somebody who can create really good looking graphics. So when I'm creating a new product, obviously I need to have like an e-cover made with a group shot with all the different products together, sometimes a website banner, all with the same types of graphics. So like this income blueprint, for instance, this graphic here, the guy did, he created that square image, he created a DVD cover for it, he created the banner which is out there in the lobby, all these types of things. Now this guy, I originally found him on the Warrior Forum, but he just does all my graphics now. So I've got him in my database, in my contact list, along with about 2 or 3 other people, because sometimes these people get booked up, and they say, I can't really fit you in this month or whatever. And typically this guy I use charges me between $40 and $60, depending on what I want. And he's very, very fast turnaround. And I just literally phone him up on Skype, just say, yeah, I'm doing this new course. I want it to be X, Y, and Z. I don't want any pictures of Ferraris and money and things like that in it. Mustn't have that. I like the color blue, bit of gold in it. And he gives me 3 or 4 examples. I say, yeah, I like that sort of thing. And he just creates it. So it's really keeping a database of these types of people. Same with sales copy. I don't write any sales copies for sales pages. When I create a sales page, I create a video, because I just find it very, very easy to create videos. When I've created the sales video, I give that to my copywriter. He gives me like a questionnaire of what my product's about, and I give him access to the product. This guy, for $350, I think it is, he writes the entire sales page for me, and I put his copy below the video. Okay. If you want to see the kind of quality this guy is producing, okay, go to the YouTube Hijack sales page. Okay, that's tubeloophole.com. And if any of you want a link to contact this guy, send me a support ticket. Okay, just go to sarahstar.com, send me a support ticket, and I'll send you the guy's contact details. Okay. So, and again, this guy now just does all of my copy. So it's really just about finding people who are good in one area and can, you just keep them on your books, basically. Same with article writing. I don't write any articles. I use a website called textbroker.com. That's a really good place if you just want to get if you're doing guest blogging, like we talked about earlier. Textbroker, you can get like 500-word articles written there for about $6. Everyone has feedback, a bit like eBay, so you're getting a quality person. You don't pay for your article until you've read it and you're satisfied with it. They have something built into the website called Copyscape, which is a way of making sure that they haven't just copied the article from another website. It's the same sort of tool that a lot of school teachers use now, I believe. Okay. So that's just a really, really quick sum up of what I'm doing with outsourcing. As I say, I don't do a huge amount of outsourcing, but I'm just going to take this through now to everyone else on the panel. Okay, this all the speakers we've got here today. We've got someone on the end who we couldn't really fit in because we just ran out of time. He was going to speak on the Saturday, but the hotel kicked us out at 5 o'clock. So. And Miraj at the end, he's an expert on outsourcing. He used to actually do outsourcing in the commercial world, in business. So it's quite interesting coming at it from a corporate point of view. So he outsources a lot of graphical work as well. So he'll be talking a little bit about that. So first of all, if I just hand you over to Rob and...
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I suppose similar to Sarah, I don't really do a lot of outsourcing at all. I should probably do more, but I'll take it from first principles really in my experience, is that when you start out, I think the best thing to do is remember two things. Firstly, you need to acquire some core skills, and that's stuff like how to use WordPress, how to build squeeze sales pages, maybe some of the themes and plugins and this kind of stuff. And even if you do end up outsourcing that kind of work, it's still very worth your while to go through that process at least once, so you can then later on you'll know whether outsourcers are really doing a good job, how much they're charging you, and so on. And also, when you get a job back from an outsourcer, say there's a little tweak that you want to make, wouldn't it be nice to be able to just do that quickly in 60 seconds, rather than having to type out an email, send it back and wait 24 hours for a turnaround time, for example. So I think it's well worth investing some time to develop a sort of core competence in technical skills. And it isn't, when we say technical skills, it's not like you've got to do really coding or anything like that. It's just about WordPress really, and basic things on your hosting, how to set up email addresses, this kind of thing. I've worked with people who outsource quite a lot, and they have a techie guy, but I can really see that it slows them down actually, because they just know so little themselves. All of the little tweaks that they want take a day or 2 days to turn around. So by just knowing a little bit, even if you're going to outsource later, then that's the first piece of advice. And the second thing is, which we've already covered, is that there are some specialist jobs where it's not really worth learning how to do yourself the first time, unless you're really keen on it. So classic example is graphics really. I mean, it's just not, I just could never be good at that if I spent weeks at it, I don't think. It's just not me. So there's no point. So if I was starting again right now, I'd outsource that straight away.
And sales pages, I'd say.
Yeah, sales pages as well. Or I tend to do that, but again, it depends if you want to do That's true. Depends what kind of product as well. You heard Mark talk yesterday about WSOs. So with lower price products, the sales page is perhaps not that important as more expensive ones, as he sort of alluded to. But yeah, certainly graphics on sales pages and those sort of designs, that again, that comes back to the sort of graphical element. But apart from those very specialised jobs, which you never probably want to do yourself, then try and do the things that you're going to outsource in the future. Try and do at least once yourself, so you've got some kind of idea about whether you're going to be ripped off, and you can make those tweaks.
Okay, do you want to take the microphone there? It's on.
Hello. All right. Biggest problem when people use outsourcers is that you don't give the outsourcer the right information, and then when you don't get back what you want, you cry about it. Yeah. And I see that self, and I've had people say to me, "Goes, well, look, he's useless." And I've looked at all the information he sent me, and I thought, "You prat! How do you expect him to give you what you want?" So my number one tip is: have you ever heard of Jing? Yeah. If you want something done that's artistic, and you've seen it similar on another website, Jing it, and then put a little note, say, I want this changed, or whatever. If you want a specialist plugin written to do something on WordPress you want to do for yourself, make sure you put down all the points you want, and if you want it to look a certain way, again, use Jing and build yourself a little collage. Yeah, when I do my biggest types of websites, when they're custom built for people, I don't build them, I outsource them. But what I do is I Jing it, and I make like little collages of what I want to illustrate what I want where.
So when you say Jing it, you mean just take screenshots using Jing. So with Jing, you can actually take screenshots of your computer screen, and then you can actually draw on the screenshot. So you can take a screenshot, then draw with an arrow pointing, saying, a bit like this button, but blue. Yeah?
Jing.
From techsmith.com.
Yeah, and it's free. Yeah.
You can record video with it as well. And you can plug a microphone in and make little training videos, or you can take screenshots as well. So you could make a little video just explaining it as well. Yeah.
And the other thing I do when I get something back and I want to try and explain what I want, trying to do email sometimes is a real pain in the arse. So, sorry, I'm a bit coarse again, aren't I? Sorry. All right. So what I do is I use Screencast-O-Matic, and it's a bit like what we were saying with Jing, where you can make a recording. The thing is with screencasters, it's done in a way that everyone can see it, and you haven't got to worry about them having the right bit of software at the other end. And I go over it, and I'll put my head mic in, and I'll say, look, I like this. I use my mouse, I click on it, or whatever, I draw a little line and say, I don't like this is pants, get rid of that. I want this over here. What do you think you're doing? Sort your life out. Move it on. And then I send them the video, or I send them a link to the video. Because there's no, half the reason that you have problems is because you don't describe it right in the first place. So make sure you put the effort in the first place, and if it isn't quite right, show them what's wrong with it so they know how to put it right.
Is it called
Screencast-O-Matic. Yeah, there's a free version, and then it's about $12, and you can record up to an hour. Yeah.
We'll take questions when everybody's just done their little session. Okay.
Hello. Okay, so outsourcing I use a lot. It's a big part of my business. For me personally, I've had a lot of luck with the Philippines, and I like it. I've got 3 full-time staff in the Philippines who I pay about £100 a month, plus bonuses on top of that. It's taken a long time to train them, but my longest one has been with me now for 2 years. So for me, it's been very beneficial to my business personally. I think the trick was spending a lot of time at the beginning. I kind of went through about 100 candidates and narrowed it down to kind of 10 people after looking at their resumes, and then actually interviewing 10 and then trialing 3 and finding 1 through that, and then I've built it up since then up to 3. So for me it's been really good. What else outsourcing? I use the VWorker site that I mentioned before. It used to be called Rent-A-Coder. If I ever need any kind of programming one-off tasks, or if you want software built, something like that, I always just post a free job on VWorker, and you can look at workers' feedback, and you can, before you even post the job, you can say how many jobs you want them to have done first, or how you want a feedback of at least 8 out of 10 before they're even allowed to bid on your project. And what I'd say is for your software or developers or any kind of technical programming things, pay a little bit more. Like if you get 10 people bid on your project between say $100 and $1,000, you're probably going to want to pick somewhere around the $400 mark. It always ends up like for some reason, or pay a little bit more, and then give good bonuses as well to people who do good work, and then they'll come back to you, and you can just go to them for projects. Once you'll slowly build up like a go-to team, so you don't have to post jobs every time. I do that. Also, I've done a few jobs through India, through outsourcing sites, and I've never had a good experience personally through India. You'll get loads of like, your cheap bids will always end up coming from India for some reason, and I always get tempted by them and then give them a bash, and they've never just been high enough quality to actually use. So my personal results is the Indian bids I just delete now before even looking at them, sort of thing. All the best programmers I've used have always come from Eastern Europe or Russia, so I always use programmers from there. I think that's pretty much it. If I look for full-time staff like a VA or something like that, I'd probably go to Odesk. I don't know if that's been mentioned this week or not. So for any like full-time writing staff, if you want someone to do articles for you and stuff, I'd use Odesk to go to that. And then for one-off like web design projects, if you're doing that for a client and you want to be the middleman, I'd probably use Elance, and then just do the things I said before, look at their feedback, make sure they've got good feedback, and pay good bonuses, try and build up a go-to team for every little thing you need doing.
Done? For the longest time I didn't outsource at all. It always struck me as being an expense that I didn't really want to go into, because I'm mean, and and I wasn't earning very much to start with either. So people were telling me how much they were spending on having sales pages written and graphics done. I thought, my goodness, I can do that myself. Of course, what I did myself was awful, and I spent years creating my own graphics, doing my own ebook front pages and all the rest of it. And I got really proficient at using the Photoshops, except I've got not an ounce of graphic skill in my bones. So even with all the skills in the world of using Photoshop, I still produce crap graphics. And so eventually I started outsourcing to the third world. I've got a guy in Manchester, and and that woke you up. But he's great. You know, he does an ebook cover for me for $47 or something, and he still charges me in dollars, even though he's in Manchester. And and he even comes to the London lunches, which is nice. But I've kind of learnt now that you can't really succeed very well in internet marketing if you persist in this scarcity mindset. If you're always worried about spending a few pounds to do something else, because the truth is, if you get someone to do something for you and they do it well, and it frees you up to do something that you can do well, everyone wins and you end up making more money as a result. So I have completely gone 180 degrees now, and I get lots of stuff outsourced. Following on from what Sarah said earlier, she uses Textbroker. I use a company called SEO Generals sometimes, which is another article writing service. They're not brilliant, but they're okay. But a much better one that I use is called iWriter, and they're very good, because although the quality of the articles isn't always 100%, and sometimes you can tell they've been written by people who aren't 100% proficient natural English speakers, you do have the facility to reject anything that they write for you. So if you look at it and you think, no, this just isn't of a quality that I want to pay for, you don't have to pay for it. You just say, no, I reject this article, and then it's offered to another writer, and another writer comes back, and you just can keep doing that as often as you like until you get an article that you like. And that, I think, works out to about $7 or $8 for a 700-word article. So that's not very expensive. iWriter, yeah, .com, and that's very good. Or as everyone else has said, you can eventually get your own little stable of writers that you've learnt that you can trust. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a lady who is in the Philippines and who is absolutely brilliant. And she does tell me that English is her second language, but she writes it better than anybody else I know who speaks it as a first language, and does a fantastic job of writing. And if you will find people like that, and it's worth paying them a little bit more than they would normally expect to keep them, and that way they don't let you down quite as often. But yeah, don't be scared of outsourcing. Just build yourself up to it.
The first thing I want to ask is, where's our graphic designers? If you could put your hands up. People who've done graphic design beforehand. Yeah, so you guys can help me out here, because the first thing when a client comes to you, what they normally give you is they give you an idea, and then what they'll give you later is a job spec, right? Past the job spec, you give a pitch, correct? That's the normal way that things work. Now, why shouldn't you go out to, wherever it is, whether it be India, the Philippines, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Eastern Europe, why shouldn't they give you a pitch? What's the difference between you working with a graphic designer in London and then giving you a pitch and someone in India giving you a pitch? There isn't one. That's one of the key important things that you need to realize about outsourcing is you shouldn't just treat them as, or you shouldn't treat the people that you're going to be working with as just someone you might go to once. Look for opportunities where you'll find people and you'll think to yourself, this guy has character, or this lady is incredibly skilled. I could use her again sometime. And it's those key people, those stars that you might find as you're doing little bits and pieces that you might want to grab hold of and say, hey, would you like to come on board with me and do a bit more work, something that pays monthly rather than just the one-off payments that you'll be normally getting. And these are the kind of people who'll be on websites like Elance, VWorker as well. There's like quite a few websites out there, and there's loads of job boards for loads of different countries. There's like, at one point, someone even told me that the quickest and easiest way of getting an outsourcer is, has anyone heard of Gumtree? Yeah? Gumtree is very similar to a website called Craigslist, and the easiest way of getting an outsourcer is to go on Craigslist for Manila in the Philippines and just look for the things that you need and just pick them out. I'm not sure if that works, but the idea behind that is that you're looking into a massive pool of people and you're selecting different people. Now, in the real world, when you're applying for a job, you don't necessarily just go, hey, so this is me, this is what I do, and here's my CV, and that's it. That's not how it works, right? What normally happens is you go for an interview. You normally have human interaction. You talk to the person that's about to employ you. And think of it that way. Think of you being the employer as someone, even though they might not be on your payroll, it might be just one job, but think of it that way. Because they are, at the end of the day, another human being providing a service to you. And, have that level of trust that you can say, okay, this is a business transaction where I'm going to ask you for a service and I expect that in return. But the key thing here, of course, is that you don't treat them as if they're different from someone that you're working with in London or someone that you're working with within Europe. The idea is that they're still a graphic designer at the end of the day, or they're still a copywriter at the end of the day. They're still someone who offers these skills for a price, whether it's lower because of geo arbitrage or because they can do it at a faster turnout. The idea is that when you're outsourcing, you don't just think to yourself, this is just something that's going to be one-off. Always be looking out for those key players that you want to bring in and say, hey, you could be on my team. You could be part of a company that might change the world. Well, maybe, but it can happen. Who never knows? But the idea is when you're doing your small little tasks, when you're giving out your tasks on Fiverr and stuff, look at the way people communicate with you. Do they have good business sense? Do they have good communication skills that you might be able to use elsewhere? One of the key things that I found out was a lot of people who had skills in, for instance, drawing and illustration, they also had really good ability to communicate ideas using typography and like putting text and spacing it out. And they just weren't using that at all. They were just like, I don't really find it that interesting. I was like, how about I give you, a set amount of money per hour to do it? They're like, all right then. as per usual, you offer someone enough money and they might do it. But saying that, there's a gentleman in America called Daniel Pink. Something that he talked about was motivation. And he looked at a study from the the US Federal Bank. And they set about a task. And they said to one, they split the groups up. So they said to one group, okay, so whoever does this the fastest, you'll get a lump of cash. And they said to another group, just do it as fast as you can, and we're just making averages just to see, you know, what happens. Who do you think did it faster? The ones who offered money, right? Wrong. Time after time for 40 years, this same experiment's been going on for 40 years, time after time, it's the group that isn't offered anything that does well. Because they're a lot more liberal, they're a lot more open-minded when they don't have to focus, right? Again, we do, of course, you don't want someone who's lazy, and you want someone to focus and do the job properly. But don't say, oh, by the way, if you do really well, I'll give you lots of money. Don't say that. Say, hey, we can work together. We can build a working relationship. At the end of the day, they're still human beings. We're all human here. We all need each other to do something. So build up that relationship with people in order for you to be able to bring them on board. Because once they're brought on board, knowing that they already have a relationship there, you can then say, look, you know, if something goes wrong, you can say, look, I trusted you, dude. You know, you should have been able to do this. And you can also look for red flags. If you already know this person, and when they come on board to your company and they're working for you, you can immediately know, okay, wait, something's going wrong. This person doesn't seem right. The way that they've written this email doesn't seem right. It's too short. Or things like that. Little pointers that you would only know if you knew that person from beforehand, correct? Like when we're working together in an office, you know when someone's down because they seem slumped, they walk a little bit differently. Again, you know, obviously you can't see that with outsourcing, but that level of human interaction is very key in outsourcing, because most importantly, a lot of the time you won't ever be able to meet this person. So that level of human interaction and being able to communicate in a human level, well, not just business, is very key, I find, with my personal experience. Thanks.
Okay.